The date again?
date and-
February 7th, 1965. My dear sisters and friends, you know almost better than we do how much Selma has figured in the news these last 3 weeks. From letters and messages we have received, it seems to me that a report from here will serve to clear up many misconceptions and allay the fears of so many well-intentioned people. Did I write this stuff? I say you know better than we how much Selma has figured in the news because northern papers have much better coverage, and the national news networks carry more than Selma papers and broadcasting stations. Added to that, the news programs all coincide with prayers or other exercises that it is almost impossible else to see what we would like. We do have first-hand information, though, from some of the people who are vitally concerned. Lest there be any misunderstanding from the beginning, let me emphasize 2 things very clearly. In one message, something was said about the sisters and fathers being neutral. If the person writing that meant neutral as I interpret it, then we most definitely are not neutral. For all practical purposes, we are Negroes living in a Negro community. Actually, we do not think in terms of color, nor do the children or of our people think of us that way. To them, we are the sisters and fathers who are their brothers and sisters in Christ, living and working with and for them. It is just as simple as that. The second thing that needs to be clarified is this. One sister writing, after seeing Mrs. Cooper strike Sheriff Clark, was concerned that such a woman would do the same thing to us. Mrs. Cooper was a woman of great courage. She watched the sheriff use an electric cattle prod on men and women standing quietly in line until her sense of justice could endure it no longer. She needs commendation, not condemnation. We are in no danger whatsoever. Has it struck you that in these 3 weeks of demonstrations, mass meetings, voter registration drives, that of all the places in which similar drives were undertaken, that Selma is the first place in which there has been no violence? And there is no violence. The only act was that of Mrs. Cooper, and we do not consider that a violent act. Even the newsmen who are here from all over the country, representing all the papers and networks, are amazed at the restraint and the dignity with which everything has been done. Every speaker at every mass meeting has stressed the nonviolent approach and the dependence of everyone on God. There is no hatred in the Negro determination to have his basic God-given rights. We could all learn a tremendous lesson of charity toward our enemies from these leaders and from every one of the people. The thing that impresses me so much is that in the midst of all this turmoil, the people never lose their sense of humor. You just can't imagine what it is like. Most of the youngsters in my 7th and 8th grades go to all the mass meetings. They give a good account of the events every day. An example of the humor, at one of the meetings last week, Sheriff Clark was voted an honorary member of the SNCC. For those who don't know, SNCC, SNCC, means Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee. Southern Christian Leadership Conference are the 2 leading organizations working for civil rights in the South. I'm sure the sheriff would not be amused by his membership. Actually, there's a great difference of opinion between the city police and the sheriff's office over the handling of affairs. The city police do not want Clark's interference, but he insists it is his right to handle it. He is the one who creates any friction in lines or on the streets. As you know, this past week there have been many arrests. On Monday, 2 of the 8th graders did not come. Tuesday it was 4, Wednesday 6, and Friday I was minus 11. They would report to Brown Chapel, where most of the meetings are held, march downtown, get arrested, taken to the armory, and held until evening. The first day they would be released when their parents came for them in the evening. If they went back again, which they did, they would be sentenced to be held for 5 days or pay $50. Nobody paid. But Friday there were so many confined that an announcement was made at the meeting in the evening that everyone was to go and get their children from the armory or from Camp Selma, where many of them had been taken. The police just couldn't keep track of them. It was amusing more than anything else. It has become a status symbol to get arrested. Do we agree with it? Wholeheartedly. Wednesday evening we had PTA meeting. It seemed almost foolish under the circumstances, but we couldn't keep on postponing it indefinitely. I was agreeably surprised at the number of people who came, but they did go on to the mass meeting when they left. I talked to the parents about the reaction on the children and advised the parents of the teenagers who had not allowed their children to participate that they really should. These children are vitally concerned. After all, their future is at stake in this project. They need to feel that they are a part of it. Besides, you have no idea of the effect it has on all the children, even the little ones. But the older ones have been in a great state of agitation. My reaction to them is this: if I were one of them, I would want to be in on it, and if I had a teenage child, I would agree with his wanting to go. If you are still with me, let me give you a study in contrast between Montgomery and Selma at the present time. In Selma, there are 24 registration days a year. In Montgomery, 80. In Selma, about 35 or 40 people are registered in a day. In Montgomery, 100 in an hour. The test of Constitution interpretation and history in Montgomery has been eliminated entirely. Why can't it be in Selma? 2 weeks ago, part of the test was printed in the St. Petersburg, Florida paper. As one of the newsmen put it, even Chief Justice Warren couldn't answer some of the questions. This part of the test is not required of white voters. If things have progressed in Montgomery to this point within the past few years, why not in Selma, which is only 50 miles away? The marches on the courthouse will continue and must until the unjust inequalities are rectified. This is the quiet determination of the people and one with which we are in full agreement. To say or even to hope that all will be done quickly or quietly would be foolish and blind thinking. It will not be. There will be much sacrifice and much hardship before anything is really accomplished. But a beginning is being made, and this is important. We are living in the midst of a revolution, when we realize that revolution means a violent change, not a war. Our children are children of revolution, and they feel it without necessarily being aware of the full implication of what it means. These are hard days for them. More than ever, they need our understanding and our love. We all need to become conscious of our relationship as sisters and brothers in the mystical body. As long as you did it to one of these, the least of my brethren, you did it to me. Unfortunately, the church in the South is silent for the most part. Last year, we had a pronouncement of integration for our schools, but it is almost impossible to find out how much integration there is. Father Moriarty, who is pastor of the Edmundite Mission, Our Lady of Lourdes in Mobile, has an integrated school. The parish is white. When he registered several children in the school, several white families left. They still go to the church on Sunday, but they do not contribute, and they took their children out of the school. Father is on the Archbishop's Liturgical Commission, and when we asked some of the pastors of Mobile about integration in their schools, they ignored the question. One school we know of in Huntsville is integrated. There it was a case of white children from Redstone Arsenal Base coming to a school for Negro children. The same is true of a school where the Trinitarians teach near the Georgia border. Beyond that, we have not heard of much integration. All of us leaves the impression that it is not new that the Catholic Church is the white man's church. It is a tragedy. We pray that it will come to an end soon. Being continued on Wednesday. So much happens each day that it is almost impossible to keep up with it all or to tell you all of it. I talked with one of my girls who has been in jail last week from Tuesday until Friday. They were kept 100 girls in one room with one toilet in the corner and no privacy. Some of the girls would stand with their coats held up to provide a little privacy. They were fed twice a day, up to about 10 in the morning, cornbread and peas, and about 7 in the evening, green beans and vegetable greens. Very little water was provided for drinking, no beds for sleeping, no chairs for sitting. If you eat or slept, it was on the cement floor. The girls were at Camp Selma for 2 days and then taken to another camp at Thomasville, about 50 miles from Selma. Conditions in both places were the same. Conditions were about the same in the county jail, which Sister Michael Ann visited on Monday with Mr. John Wright, the assistant administrator of the hospital, and Mr. Pitts, the lawyer, in order to get some of the nurses released. It was quite an experience, Sister said. The girls were in for contempt of court. The girl we went for was in for contempt of court, but she had never been near the courtroom. This is the charge being used on almost everyone now, because it can't be erased without their going into the court. After much delaying, the nurse was finally released, but not until Sister and Mr. Wright signed her bond. Yesterday, Father McNeese went downtown with a young man who wanted to enlist in the Army. When Father pulled up in front of the federal building, which is across from the courthouse, a sheriff's deputy stepped up to the car and said, "Mr. McNeese, you are under arrest." Father looked at him and said, "You're kidding." But he wasn't. Before asking any questions, he was arresting Father McNeese because he thought Father was bringing the young men down to join the picket line or the voter registration line. Of course, it didn't go through, but you can see to what lengths they are going with their injustices. Yesterday afternoon, Sister Liguri, Sister Josepha, and I had quite an experience. This is one I think I told you about. We went down to the county jail to see if they would let us see some of the teenagers who were there. When we arrived, we were told that all the juveniles had been taken to Camp Selma early in the afternoon. So out to Camp Selma we went, about 10 miles outside of the city. There we got the best runaround you ever heard of. First, they were not there. Then they would bring them into a separate room while we talked with them. Again, they were not there. There were no teenagers there, only adults. Well, maybe they did have a few teenagers. One man drove the bus that brought him out there, but again, they had no teenagers. After contradicting themselves about a dozen times, they were told no visitors were allowed except on Sunday. We could see them then, but we had better get in touch with Captain Crocker first. We were going to try on Sunday, but are sure they will have another story then. While we were talking with them, a car drove up with the Reverend Brown and 3 other men who were bringing food for the teenagers. I'm not sure they got in with it. We heard Reverend Brown say he had Sheriff Clark's permission, but nobody out there seemed inclined to let him anyway. They were still there when we left. I know they wouldn't leave the food unless they could give it to the youngsters themselves, because they wouldn't get it. One day they brought one of the teenagers from the jail to the hospital because he was ill. Yesterday the doctor was going to discharge him until Sister Eleanor Sister Eleanor is Sister Barbara, discovered that the deputies would be right down to take him back to the jail. As a result, he is being kept in the hospital without further charge. He is not in any condition to be taken back into Camp Selma. I could keep this letter up in journal form from day to day, but then it would never get mailed. I hope this will at least answer some of the questions that are in the minds of many. If you care to write and ask others, I'll do my best to answer them, as I am sure any of the sisters here would. We do ask that you keep the movement in your prayers and the people who are involved in it. They are making many sacrifices to obtain what is rightfully theirs already, but which they are not allowed the use. Don't be misled by the statements of the white Selmians who say they are conforming to the civil rights law with all due speed. They are not, nor do they intend to if it can be avoided. They also need prayers. I think Father Crowley's letter, which appeared in the Selma Times Journal last Sunday, is being printed in full in the Courier. I hope you will read it. I will send as many as I can acquire, but all of these letters will not have one. All of these letters will not have one because I don't have enough. You are always in our thoughts and prayers. Keep us in yours. I might add, I think this is a wonderful time to be in Selma. I wouldn't miss it for the world. God love you all. With deep affection and prayers. Sister Mary Paul. Gee, I didn't remember I wrote such good stuff. But I guess I did.
It was all yours.